Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and it's time for another collection stream. I just started this series last week. I am going through all of my collections live. Going to do this as close to weekly as possible, and I thought I would do this one pretty early because it's a smaller collection, at least so far. I don't know how many more of these I'm going to end up getting, but it's gonna go faster than some of the other things, although I'm sure I'll find some way to stretch this out to an hour. Tonight I'm going to talk about my geeky tattoos, and I have enough of these now that I feel like I can call them a legitimate collection, and it's the one collection that I take with me, of course, everywhere I go, because it is imprinted permanently on my person. Although I feel like this is going to be kind of dark, I guess, but I feel like calling tattoos permanent is interesting. It's a little bit of a misnomer, right? Just to wax philosophical for a second, because human beings themselves are not permanent. So, of course, your tattoos will not be there forever because you will not be there forever, and you can't take them with you any more than you can take your comics or your Blu-rays. But as close to permanent as possible, barring a limb getting chopped off or something, I will always have these for as long as I am around, and I love them, and I don't regret having them whatsoever. It sometimes feels like kind of a crazy sort of extreme thing for me because it's a thing I never thought I would do, but every time I think about it for a second, it's like, wow, I'm covered with these now. I go, I don't know, I'm also more comfortable in my skin somehow now having these, so I am literally wearing my fandom on my sleeves now. And some people think it's a little out there. I think I've gotten not very much flack at all on the channel or in person. I rarely have had anybody even raise an eyebrow. I think it's gotten just so much more mainstream, so much more acceptable to have tattoos, at least in this country now, that, in a lot of countries certainly, but there are places where it's not as normalized now. And a lot of people just think it's cool, and what's interesting is walking into stores and going out in public and which ones different people latch onto. It's very rarely, sir, you have a lot of really cool tattoos. I've gotten that a couple of times, but more often it's the one that really resonates with people. And I guess I'll say this real quick. When I started getting them, I wanted to be as unique as possible. I wanted to try to get tattoos that nobody else would ever think to get or has. And so I would scour and research and look for pictures on the internet. And if I saw an image I was considering getting on somebody else's person, I would not get it. And of course, not everybody publicizes what they get. Not everybody puts their pictures up online. But if I saw, like, especially if I saw a bunch of them, I'd go, I don't really want that. It's not unique. A lot of people have that. And I've gotten a little bit, I'm less of a stickler about that now because I'm finding, well, partly just because there are some images that are near and dear to me enough that I still would consider getting them even if other people have them. And I try to put some sort of a spin on them. Having a really good tattoo artist that puts his or her own spin on it themselves, that has kind of a signature way to do their work also helps a lot. And the guy that did most of my tattoos certainly has that. And so even the ones I have that other people have, mine don't look exactly like everybody else's. But also, I wanted stuff that was not necessarily recognizable. And I think a lot of people who get tattoos have that, where like it's a personal thing. They don't need people to actually notice them or recognize them and know what they are. And it maybe looks too mainstream and kind of it's not as interesting, or it's kind of lame if it's like, oh, you got that because it's in vogue, or it's popular, it's what everybody gets. Yeah, everybody's got that same bat symbol, or everybody's got that, like I see a lot of Nightmare Before Christmas tattoos, and that's not a thing I would probably get anyway, but I would be less likely to get that just because so many other people have that. But I also just But the more I got them, and the more I would get stopped, this is where I was going with this, the more I would get stopped by people, it would be really cool when I had something that excited someone, resonated with them, made them feel good, and I've had that happen several times, and again with different tattoos. So a couple weeks ago, I was stopped by a guy when I went out to get food. I went to eat at a Hawaiian Brothers, and the guy that was working there was like, "I really like your Sonic and Knuckles tattoo," and we hit it off. We started talking, so it ends up being a cool conversation piece that you can walk around with, and it makes it really easy to spark up conversations with people. And then just the other day, somebody asked me, and I'll go through these and show you each of them real close up here in a little bit. But I had a guy who noticed my Gold Ranger tattoo. We'll see if you can see it here. And he goes, "What is that a tattoo of?" And I assumed the guy probably didn't know anything about Power Rangers, so I didn't lead with Power Rangers. I said, "Well, it's a Japanese kanji. It means king." But the reason I got it was because I'm a big Power Rangers fan, and that's the symbol for Gold Ranger and Zeo. And he goes, "Oh, Gold Ranger." Like, he remembered that, and he loved Power Rangers. We started talking about Tommy and the sad passing of Jason David Frank and all of that. So again, it's been kind of a nice conversation starter. And so I have not minded having more recognizable stuff, but I still get stuff, of course, that is geeky, but very personal to me. So I'm not the kind of person that needs all my tattoos to be about my family, my wife, my kids, although a couple of mine are, but I also have a geeky bent on them because that's been kind of my theme, and that's who I am and what I do. Before I show them, I also want to mention that I'll just kind of tell you the origins of this and why I do this now. So you guys see these, at least when I'm wearing short sleeves, and now we're in the summer, I'm wearing short sleeves more, and you're not seeing the fingerless gloves as much. I just wanted to mention kind of the origins of why I got them. You guys see a couple of them all the time. There's a few that some of you guys might not have seen yet. I have announced them and put a picture up, I think, each time I've gotten one, or at least most of them. I think maybe the Kryptonian script ones people have not necessarily seen. But I'll get into what those are and why I have those here in a little bit. But I'll talk about the origins of these and then what's kind of changed with it now. So I started getting tattoos in 2021, and it was a thing, like I said, I was always apprehensive about. Some of it was the pain thing, I guess. I didn't know what it felt like. I didn't know if it would be fun to get them. I didn't know if it would be worth, sitting there and being essentially getting an intentional wound on yourself to get art on you. And I had a sister-in-law who has tattoos, and hers are really cool, and I always admired hers, and she always thought I was the kind of person that would probably really, really love them and should get one. And she wasn't horribly pushy. It wasn't peer pressure. But every time I'd see her, she'd be like, Cap, because all my family calls me Cap, of course, are you sure you don't want to get a tattoo? Like, you really should. I'll go with you. And finally, I broke down and I went, okay, I'm going to get a relatively small one. And Rachel, my sister-in-law, took me. She and I have always been really close, and it was the most fun thing we ever did together. We went to Electric Iron here in Kansas City, and she goes, let's go find like a walk-in place. And so we went to a place that's like half an hour from here, and the guy that I got most of my tattoos from was the guy that did hers that day. He is known for color. He does a lot of kind of pop art type stuff, and she did several stars, different colors on the back of an arm that looked really cool. I don't have a picture of that right now to show you, but that was the first of Elmo's work I saw. I had mine done by a different guy that day, and the first tattoo that I got, I guess I'll show it to you now, was this one, which is, of course, the Geekvolution logo. I thought, if I'm going to get anything, I might as well get the thing that I do. I am really in love with the design that DJ came up with. I think it's absolutely perfect. Originally, we came up with this, or I should say DJ came up with this. He knows me super, super well, and was like, well, it should be kind of space-themed. We'll make it a planet. It'll look like Saturn. It'll be a G with rings in it. And originally, I was talking about, and I still am seriously talking about doing this in the not-too-distant future, starting a publishing arm of the channel where I would publish my books and some other people's books, and this was supposed to be the logo for that, and I loved it so much I said, let's just make it the channel logo. And you guys see this all the time now, of course, and I love it. I adore it. It's on my left arm here, and so I got that, and I immediately fell in love with the whole process. Like, I really enjoyed getting it. I loved having it and looking at it. I loved showing it to people, and it was a completely unique thing that nobody else had. And I thought it looked classy. And like all by itself, with no other tattoos on your body, it's kind of a cool, not horribly conspicuous tattoo. Now again, I'm more covered in them, and people notice immediately. Oh, that's a guy who has tattoos. So. I don't know if I've talked about this publicly, but it became, and I have something of an addictive personality, particularly when it comes to collections. And I didn't think of this as a thing that would be, like I was starting a collection, or it would be like a collection. But it turned into that very quickly, because immediately, a couple days after I got that, I could not stop thinking about other possible ideas for them. And for simple walk-in ones like I did the week before, because I just wanted to go back and get another one. So I did that the Saturday before, and that Saturday, the very next week, I told my wife, hey, if we don't have anything going on this afternoon, I kind of want to go in and get another one. And I think she was a little taken aback, but she's always been really supportive of it. Sarah doesn't love the tattoo thing. It's not something she would ever do. She doesn't really get why I get them, I don't think. But if she was horribly uncomfortable with it, I wouldn't do it. And I have continually checked with her and made sure that she was all right with it. And I think she was apprehensive at the start, and as time went on, a little bit, but like not horribly uncomfortable with it. It wasn't like she's giving me this eye like, oh, that's my husband, like that's what I have to live with every day. And if that's what it was, I would have stopped very quickly. But she goes, no, that's fine if you really want to do that. So I actually got my second tattoo, which is the Gold Ranger tattoo that I mentioned earlier, the very next week. And again, I thought this would be cool because I didn't see this with anybody else. This I have in the same place, but on my right arm. And I've always adored Gold Ranger. It doesn't, for me, mean anything really beyond just the Power Ranger fandom and that being my favorite Power Ranger. But the idea that it's also just a Gold Ranger kanji, that it means king. Again, the king thing for me doesn't really mean anything beyond the fact that, like, I'm sort of an entrepreneur. I'm kind of like on my own. I do my own thing, and I've always been, I guess, something of a leader with whatever it is I'm doing. So there's nothing really regal about it, but I guess that's the only place that I could kind of stretch it and say it connects to me personally at all. But anyway, so I got that, and I loved it, and I got the gold around it, which doesn't show up all the time in every kind of lighting. I don't know how well you guys can even see it there. It's a real faint gold outline, but when you're out in the sun, if you're in natural lighting, it really pops. This is the one I've got that I would like to get some touch-up for. As you can see there, it's got a few blemishes through it, although some people have told me that just kind of gives it character and it looks on purpose, and it's not bad at all. It doesn't need to be blacked up, inked in anymore. So I may just leave it the way it is. But yeah, that was my first two. And then for the next 2 years, I got another one, or at least a year and a half. I got another one on average every 6 weeks, which I did not do intentionally. But hear me out for a second, because this is part of the reason this happened. So my wife and I had twins in July of 2021, and life became very hectic and stressful after that, as you might imagine. And it's difficult to explain why exactly this is, but getting tattoos was very much a catharsis for me. And like I said, I liked everything about the whole process. I also like the social aspect of it. Once I started, my third tattoo, I became friends with my tattoo artist who did that, and it was really fun to just go and see him and talk for the couple hours that it took him to tattoo. And so there was also that just getting out of the house and social aspect to it as well. And yeah, you end up with something permanent afterwards, and you got to make sure that it's something that you can live with and that you really like. But it became kind of addictive, but it was also a catharsis, and it was also this kind of, fun social thing that I was doing for quite a while. I'll show you guys the third one here in a second. Let me read some of these comments. Welcome, guys. Page 14617 says it was unique 40 years ago. Unique putting corporate brands on your body cap. Yeah, that's fair. And I totally get that criticism. In my defense, not everything I've got is like a symbol or a brand. They do tend to be based on a corporate property in the first place. Yeah, I'm well aware of that, and I wondered, how I should feel about that when I first decided doing them. And the pop culture thing has been my life for so long that there's a certain personal ownership that I take with my own fandoms. And if you want to look at it like I'm corporately branding myself, that's completely fair. I'm very comfortable with it because of how much I care about those things and what they mean to me. As some of it is, of course, just your favorite things starting when you were a kid. A lot of them with me, like a rule that I've had so far, and I don't know if I'll stick to this if I get any more. The rule, and it's been a while since I've gotten one, but the rule that I've had so far is I don't get anything that I haven't deeply cared about for 20 years. Because I don't want it to be like a fly-by-night thing. Like, I want it to at least be a thing that I know that I'm always going to like. By the way, anybody that thinks this is on and is not comfortable with it, I understand that. At one time, I think I would have been right there with you. And again, it's difficult to explain why it works for me and why I'm personally so comfortable having them. But I'm also well aware that not everybody's going to feel the way I do about it, and that there's always going to be consequences for doing things that are out of the ordinary for some people, and that I don't know how else to put it, but that just people don't love, people aren't comfortable with. And again, I've not had a whole lot of backlash and that kind of thing, but I have been around people before that I just know are not going to like that and care about that, and I don't flaunt it. I typically wear long sleeves when I'm dealing with people like that. And I realize that you said, like, it's not, it used to be unique, and it isn't now. But for some people, it's still just, not a thing they like, not a thing that they think people should be doing. And I totally respect that. He also says, Power Rangers, are you 7 years old, Cap? Power Rangers is, these days, like more of an adult fandom even than it is a kid fandom. And if you're not into it, that probably feels like, and maybe there's some truth to this, I don't know. I can psychoanalyze myself about this, I guess. But it might be look like a lot of adults that never grew up and are man-children now. Of late, there's been a lot of material that has grown up some with us. Finally, we have some smarter, more sophisticated, relatively anyway, Power Rangers material to deal with, to sink our teeth into. I've stayed into the fandom more recently, especially because of the tabletop gaming that Renegade Studios has been doing for Power Rangers. The Heroes of the Grid game is absolutely not a for kids thing. It's a really good miniatures strategy game, and my kids do play it with me, but it's not a little kid game. It's certainly quite involved, but yeah, it's silly, it's ridiculous, and I still love Ninja Turtles. Like, there's a lot of stuff from when I was a kid that I have stayed a fan of, or that I have kind of come back around and become a fan of again. And some of those things are guilty pleasures. Absolutely. I'm well-rounded. I would like to think, there's a lot of, much smarter, more sophisticated, more adult things that I like. And I also like to, embrace my inner child and go back to my favorite things from when I was a kid as well. And, luckily there have been a lot of things more recently, that have kind of come out and bridged the gap with those things. But anyway, he says, mad respect for reading my comments. Yeah, no problem. And I certainly don't mind, talking about those things and those kinds of criticisms. Cause I get it. I get why you might feel that way. Anyway, so moving right along. Let me show you the next ones. This guy's gonna think I'm even more of a little kid as we go along, I think. So here comes the third one. This is my Nights into Dreams tattoo, and I would have to take 3 different pictures to show it to you from all sides because it wraps around my arm. But here it is. You can see the other side of it here with the orbs. All of the colored orbs from the game are here too. Nights into Dreams is my favorite video game of all time. It's just a real special thing to me. And I thought if I was going to get anything that was real big on an arm, it would be cool to get Knights. Partly, again, because it was an unusual thing that not a lot of people have. And I was only able to find like 3 Knights tattoos total on the entire internet. And I was like, that's cool. Nobody's going to know what that is. So I'll get that. And that was the first thing I got from Elmo. And the most expensive tattoo by itself that I've gotten as well. And as I developed a relationship with him, he gave me great deals on tattoos. And that's part of the reason I kept going back as well. One of the things, I was going to mention this earlier, but now's a good time since I'm showing you a tattoo that I got from Elmo. It seems that I'm not going to be able to get any more from him. I hope somehow that's not the case. I didn't really want to go to anybody else, but he's kind of dropped out off the map, and I can't find him now. So I have had Elmo on the channel, and he was sponsoring us for a little while, where he was doing... he had a company where he was making like stationery and mugs and things with his art on them, and I was trying to help him develop, build some business with that. And the last thing I got from him was back in November, and a few weeks later I sent him another design of a thing I was kicking around getting, so that would have been Tattoo 13, and I'd never heard back from him, which was kind of curious, and he was always the fastest at responding, so I didn't think anything of it, except that as the weeks wore on, it was weird that he never messaged back, and I finally tried to message him again, or I went in and I was going to, and then he had dropped off Facebook. His account just wasn't there. And so I emailed the shop to find out if he was still working there, and they said that he had left. They didn't give me any details at all. Again, this is Electric Iron, and I still will name drop them because I like their business, and they have other great tattoo artists there. But he was just nowhere to be found, and they said they didn't know what store or what tattoo place he had gone to, if he was still working, if he was still doing tattoos. He's done tattoos for 20 years, I think, so I would imagine that's still what he's doing, but I never had a phone number for him. For a while, he didn't even have a phone. He just did everything on his tablet. And so without Facebook, and his only email that I had for him was through that shop that he no longer works at. So he has completely disappeared, and he has an Instagram, he has a couple of social media accounts that he hasn't updated in years, so I don't know if I'm ever going to get to work with him again. And again, we were friends, I really liked him, I liked talking to him, just hanging out with him. I had him over the house once, we did a live stream, and so I hope to get to see him again. I hope he's okay, but I just wanted to mention that real quick, that one of the reasons I've slowed down is because I'm going to have to go to somebody else, and part of the reason I kept doing this was because I had a great relationship with someone. So the Knights tattoo was the one that, as you might expect, took the most sessions. A lot of these were just one time. This one I had to go in a total of 4 times to do. Most of it was done in 3, and then was just a touch-up session for the 4th. So I had it in mostly black and white for a while, and then like half of it was colored, and then the other half basically more or less. I love the shading with it. I love the color selections. There's a lot of different shades of purple, and it was really interesting to watch him work because Elmo had like 15 or 20 different shades of purple all sitting on his counter while we were working. And you can't really tell just looking at it because it's blended in so well, but it's really intricate work, and a lot of thought went into it as he went. I mean, he's so good at what he does. He's done it for so long that I think he doesn't have to do a ton of pre-planning, and he comes up with a lot of ideas on the fly. I'll show you one later that he told me he was really bored with the idea of when we started, and then as he got into it, he was really enjoying it. He did a really cool gradient thing with it. But I adore this tattoo. if you were to ask me what my favorite is, it would be hard not to say this one just because Knights is such a special near dear thing to me. It's my favorite game to go back to. I've talked about this before, but when I was a kid, I really appreciated kind of the message of that game and the way it opened my imagination. And it's huge. It's the most impressive looking one I have, I think. And then moving right along, I think I got most of the order of this right. There's a couple I can't remember exactly when I got them in comparison to the others or in relation to the others because I did it in such quick succession. But the fourth one I got is just a quick. He did this in like 45 minutes. Nightfall, like Azrael Batman tattoo, and I got the gold around that as well, just because the image that we were working off of also had yellow around it, because that symbol in the comics when it was used very often had that page 14, 6, 17, yeah, more corporate branding. I could have put like a registered trademark symbol right next to it. But I always knew I wanted some bat symbol because I'm such a giant Batman guy. I wear Batman rings. I've got the huge Batman collection down here in the bunker. And I kicked around a few different ones. At one point, I thought about even doing a sleeve of different bat symbols. I actually met a guy not too long ago who worked at a comic shop who had a side tattoo with like 15 different bat symbols, and it gets bigger as it goes along. It was really cool, and I almost did something like that. But this was when I went to get a tattoo with my mom. When she turned 60, she said, and I was really surprised by this. My mom was one of the people that I wasn't sure would accept the tattoo thing. Or I shouldn't say accept it, but I wasn't sure if she'd care for it. I didn't expect to get disowned by my parents with this or anything. But she and my dad actually both really like it and think it's super cool. And she was like, I never thought I would want to do that, but you got yours and they're cool. And Elmo, could I get one? And that's what I did for her 60th birthday. So she and her husband, my stepdad Jeff, are real into music. Jeff is a concert pianist and a composer, and my mom is in choirs and things like that. And so she got a musical tattoo. I can't remember if it's a treble clef. I think that's what it is. Like a heart with it or something. And I was taking her to get a tattoo. I didn't want her to feel left out, so I got one too. Or I didn't want to feel like she was having to do it alone, I guess I should say. And it was between that and the Batman Forever ? Symbol. And Elmo was a little bit busier that day and he wouldn't have had time to do that one. So I ended up going with this, which I think was probably ultimately the better choice, or as good of a choice. So I did that, and Nightfall's a thing that I've covered some on the channel, and I was supposed to do I started a whole series on that with what would have been Batman Year, the sequel to Spawn Year, and ended up having to shut that down for various reasons. But Nightfall's a thing that I don't know. I always thought that that symbol was really provocative, and it's one of my favorite arcs in comics. It's goofy, parts of it, but I love it. And then here is the God, it looks good photographed. This is my Sonic and Knuckles tattoo. Again, just a brand from a box. This was one that Jason begged me to get. And part of the reason I got this one was because he loves the symbol so much. It was his backdrop on his computer forever because he really wanted me to get it as a tattoo. And so I finally pulled the trigger on that. And I love the color work with that. I love the way the red and the blue pops. I've had it a couple of years now, and it's still really vibrant. It looks, at least photographed, not too far away from what it did when I first got it. That took 2 sessions too, and it was actually 6 or 8 weeks in between sessions because of travel and like trips and stuff that Elmo and I were both making. And so I lived with it in black and white for a while, and I actually really liked what that looked like. Have considered not going color, but Elmo sort of insisted. Not because I don't think he was getting paid or whatever, but just because he knew it was going to look great, and he knew what he wanted it to look like. And I'm really happy with the blue around the eyes, especially. Love that one. So yeah, and I'm glad I got this so prominent because I think it's one of the coolest looking ones, and I do get comments on that one quite often. Paige, now get a Jar Jar tattoo. It's so funny you say that. Like, I would never do that, but and I don't think I would get a Star Wars thing in general, just because I'm not a giant Star Wars guy. But when I was in junior high, when that movie came out, as kind of a joke, I actually had a Jar Jar Binks collection. I had like 12 or 14 items that I traded at one point for the beginning of my Tick collection. Well, that and some other Star Wars stuff that I had. But anyway, it's funny you bring that up because I could see a universe where I'm crazy enough to get a Jar Jar Binks tattoo. But we do not live in that universe, thank goodness. Jareth Gearhart, have you ever thought about designing your own tattoo? If I get one, I've already designed one that I will get. Cool. I'm not an artist, so the closest I would do is get somebody else to design it for me. And the closest I've done with that is, again, with DJ. Elmo really didn't, like, from scratch design any of mine. I kicked around doing a Ninja Turtles with him like that, but ultimately we ended up picking an Eastman and Laird drawing because I wanted that style, and he has his own much more kind of cartoony style, and he was like, I can't design something in someone else's style, which made sense and I respected. So, but I really wanted a black and white Eastman and Laird looking drawing, and he was like, well, then you need to go with one of theirs. So that's what I ended up doing. So that's on my left forearm, and then on my right, I've got my Star Trek tattoo, and I knew I was going to eventually get something Star Trek. This was the hardest one actually to decide on. There's actually another one I think I got before this. I think these are a little bit out of order, but it makes sense to put these together because of the story about how I paid for these, which I'll tell you in just a second. Yeah, I knew I would be able to make this an hour. I bet it will be. We're already half an hour in, and I'm like halfway through the tattoos. There's a lot of stories behind these. A lot of people, of course. Everybody's got stories with their tattoos. This one we also did in one night, which is pretty astounding given how much color work is involved with it. This was the one that he was really bored with at first and then got excited about the gradient that he did with the orange and the yellow. He did such a remarkable job on this one. This is... Man, I hope he pops up and somehow messages me at some point. I missed that guy. Anyway, so this is, of course, the symbol that's, or I should say the badge that's on the uniforms from Star Trek 2 through 6, and shows up in, lots of series when we do flashbacks to that period, of course. And like I said, it was really hard to decide what thing to get. Doing any kind of chevron seemed really obvious to me, but it was difficult to find anything really wholly unique that I liked enough to go ahead and get. So I compromised and got a specific badge that I had not seen a tattoo of. This is, of course, a really popular one. Like, a lot of people love that uniform, but I hadn't seen a tattoo of it. And we went all the way to putting the weird circle in the corner that for some reason is on those badges. Pardon me. I'll never understand why that's there, but we went ahead and left it in the tattoo. And that needs no explanation. I'm just a giant Star Trek guy, and I wanted that. I wanted that somehow somewhat prominently displayed. I considered getting the Borg symbol, and I just decided that this was kind of a more, I don't know, uplifting, positive image, and it made a little bit more sense on a forearm. So that's why I did that. My wife really wanted me to get two things that somehow went together, that when you put your arms together made like one image. But she didn't even mention that idea to me. I don't even know what it would be. She didn't even mention that to me until I'd already gotten one side of it. So that was never going to happen. So Elmo was real big into building Lego kits, and I had one that he really desperately wanted that was getting expensive, and he was having a hard time getting one for a decent price, and it sat in my bunker for like 3 years, and I just never got around to putting it together. I have learned that I like having fully built Lego kits. I don't love or have the time to build them, and I impulse bought, when it came out, the giant Batman 89 Batmobile, the Lego Batmobile, and it was $250 when it came out. By the time I met Elmo, it had skyrocketed to closer to $500. Most people were selling it for that. I don't know what it goes for now. And it came up, the Lego thing came up, and I mentioned that I had that, and he got real jealous, and he was like, Man, I really want that one, and it's like double what it used to cost. Would you ever consider selling it? And I was like, I really don't know, but I haven't built it yet. So then later that night, he sends me a message, and he gives me an offer, and he says, I'll give you X amount of, or I'll charge you X amount of cash for it, or sorry, I'll give you X amount of cash for it, or I'll give you X number of money in tattoos for it. And I was getting tattoos with him regularly, and it was going to be a way better deal for the tattoos than it would be for the amount of money that he was offering. And so I went and took that. So I got both of these tattoos for giving him that Batmobile, and he charged me, relatively much less than it would have cost in cash, and especially with anybody else. So anyway, I don't know if that story is interesting to anybody, but that's how those happen. And this is what these collection videos are going to be like, by the way, folks. I just a lot of reminiscing and stories about my stuff, and hopefully it's not too horribly self-indulgent, but hopefully it's fun for folks. So this is my black and white sketch tick tattoo. This is actually a Ben Edlund drawing. We almost went as far as having Ben Edlund's signature in it too, because the sketch that he did had a signature underneath it, but I decided not to do that just because I didn't want to have to answer the question, is that actually Ben Edlund who tattooed on your arm? So we just left it as it is, but he managed to duplicate it, precisely as it is, with all the same blemishes and lines popping out and everything. So this is a legitimate Ben Edlund sketch tattooed on my arm. And this particular one happened because I did a super chat goal 1 week where I let the super chat winner for the Captain Logan show pick from a list of topics for me to get my next tattoo off, and Tom won that, and he picked the tick, which of course everything I picked were things that I wanted, but that was one I was hoping to do soon, so I'm glad that I got that when I did. And then the next one is I kind of think of as my favorite, even over the Knights one, but maybe they're tied. And this is the one that really makes me look like a 7-year-old, but I don't care. Bubbles is my favorite cartoon character of all time, and I thought I maybe wanted Powerpuff Girls somewhere, but it had to be the exact right image. And then I found this Philip Moy drawing. Philip Moy is an artist who I've always really liked. I've met him a couple times at cons. I actually got to show him this at Planet Comic-Con this year and bought another sketch from him because I like his work so much. But he did a lot of the Powerpuff Girls comics in the late 90s for DC. And this is a drawing, of course, of Bubbles as Mojo Jojo in the Los Dos Mojo episode where she gets amnesia and accidentally and ends up she gets hit in the head and she ends up thinking that she's Mojo Jojo. I think it's the funniest episode of the show. It's my favorite, and when I found that drawing, I was like, I've got to have that. Because of the leg we had already decided to put it on, we actually had to reverse the image, but you'd never know that if you'd never seen the drawing before. And again, his color work on this is great. I really love what the eyes look like. And it was Elmo's favorite of the ones that he did with me, judging by the fact that it's the only one that he took a picture of and posted on social media. AMC says the minifigs that came with that Batmobile were awesome. Yeah, they were cool. That was one thing that I kind of hated giving up with it, but it's all right. I'm just not a big Lego collector, and I have really not regretted doing that. I know a lot of people would think I'm nuts for doing that, but to each his own. Honestly, I wouldn't have thought that would happen. From here to here, hey Cap, what's your least favorite tattoo so far? Of the ones that I have. I mean, I love them all, of course, and I don't regret having gotten any of them, but I would say it's maybe, there's one I would have done differently if I had it to do over again, and it actually is the Gold Ranger tattoo that I talked about at the beginning. So that is probably technically my least favorite. The reason is because Avery, the guy that tattooed that, just before I started getting them with Elmo, he made a suggestion that I wish I'd gone with, because I told him, yeah, go ahead and put the gold around it like was in the image that I gave him. He goes, we could do that, or we could do kind of a gradient thing where it starts in black, and as it goes along, kind of diagonal, it becomes gold. And so half of it, like split down the middle, half of it would be black, and half of it would be gold, and there would be a really natural kind of gradient that happens. Boy, I wish I'd done that. That would have been really cool. And I'm not sure why I did. It was because I didn't know if I was going to get any more. And what I had on my left arm was all black. And even though we did the gold outline, I just thought they wouldn't match well enough. And now I don't care about that because I have so many. But at the time, I thought that mattered. So if I had to do it over again, I would certainly change that. Yeah, Paige and I clearly have very different interests and tastes. Moving right along, so here is my first of two Kryptonian script tattoos. This is the one that you see on my right arm here, and this is the Kryptonian language that started in Smallville and shows up in a lot of Superman comics. This was actually the first idea I had for a tattoo when I first started thinking about getting these. I'll tell you this too. When I was a lot younger, the first idea I ever had for a tattoo was the moon with the bite taken out of it with the HA from the tick. And I've never done that because I just don't know if it would actually make for a good looking tattoo. That was the first thing I ever thought to get. But when I first started seriously deciding to do these, I was like, wouldn't it be cool if I had my wife's name in Kryptonian? So you look at this and it just looks like cool Kryptonian symbols. If you're a Superman fan, you'll know what those are, but you won't necessarily know what it spells unless you're somehow geeky enough to actually know the language. And so at the top, that is the Kryptonian symbol for S, and at the bottom, that's the Kryptonian symbol for H. And so it spells Sarah going all the way down. And so yes, I'm that guy that's gotten his wife's name tattooed on himself. Sarah and I am confident, will always be together. We've been married for 16 years. We've been together for 21 years. But even if somehow tragically something happened and ultimately down the road it didn't work out, at least you can't tell that's a person's name. So it would be heartbreaking for me, but anybody else looking at it would not be able to go, oh, that's really unfortunate. That your wife broke up with you and you still have her name on your arm. So yeah, that's never going to happen, but if it did, I've at least got that failsafe sort of built in. And then I'll go ahead and jump to this one real quick. I did it on the other arm with the first letter of each of my kids' names. So at the top there, that's the Kryptonian symbol for J, and at the bottom, it's the Kryptonian symbol for A. And so you have Jason, and then Freddy, and then Mikey, and then my twins are right next to each other. So that's a C on the left for Cassandra, and an S on the right for Selena, and then on the bottom is A for Autumn, who is our last child and the absolute last child that we will have, without question. Autumn, who is now 5 months old. And part of the idea with this was always, I had 5 kids, and my wife's name is 5 letters long, so they would match each other. But then we ended up having a 6th child, so the number of letters didn't match anymore. But you put the two side by side, and they at least still top to bottom kind of go next to each other. But anyway, I'm really happy with how those came out too. Elmo also did those, and doing script writing like that is very, very simple and goes really quick with him, and those were the cheapest tattoos to get. But anyway, and then I've got my Lord Zed tattoo. So yes, I have 2 Power Rangers tattoos, Paige. That's how big of a Power Ranger fan I am. Yes, I am 7 years old, I suppose, absolutely. But this was a cool tattoo design, and this is actually designed as a tattoo that I found online. Just the top of the Lord Zed staff. Lord Zed is my favorite villain design of all time, and I just love him. And it's hard to describe why and how much, but Lord Zed is awesome, and I knew I always knew I wanted something for Zed if I kept getting tattoos. So this is what I ended up going for instead of getting like a big head or something. But he and I actually decided to add the lightning based on a cover of one of the Boom Power Rangers comics. And it looks way cooler than it would have if we left it that way. And that was an addition that I actually came up with the day of. I sent him a picture and I went, could we get these lightning bolts in the middle of it? It was like, oh yeah, that'll look super cool. And we actually were talking for a while about maybe even going out from that and putting more lightning bolts across the arm in various places. I don't know if I'll do that now that I'm not working with him anymore, but Jareth, that Zed one is awesome. Thanks, man. He says, do you have to use any products to preserve your tattoos? No, they're going to fade a little bit over time, and there's really nothing you can do to stop that. You can pay to get them touched up, which I don't think I want to do unless I can do it with the same artist. I don't think, but yeah, you don't have to use any product or anything. You do have to go through a real simple cleaning process when you first get them, of course, to make sure that they don't heal wrong and peel weird. But after that, they're just kind of there. I will say they do occasionally itch. I haven't had a major problem with this, and I've talked to other people with tattoos that have this too. The Z one is actually the one that flares up the most often. Every now and again, it'll kind of itch a little bit, and like it'll itch in certain places where I have tattoos. It's hard to say for sure if it's because of the tattoo, but I think it is. It's just hard to say with me because I have so many of them now. AMC, no, you're not crazy at all, Cap. At the end of the day, you're you and I'm me. Well, I appreciate that. AMC, not to get sidetracked, but Cap, have you seen the NECA 66 Batarang? I have, and it's super cool. And I don't know if I'm going to get one because I have a replica. And by the way, I don't mind answering other, especially collection questions in the middle of these videos. I'm going to do these really laid back and really take my time. So I want to interact with you guys. So feel free to bring stuff like that up. If we get too far off the beaten path, I might not talk as long about something that I would usually in the Captain Logan show. But just to kind of lay ground rules with this, yes, totally fine talking about that for just a second. I have a good Batarang replica from that show signed by Adam West that I got signed, I want to say like 3-4 years before he passed. But that one is even a little bit more screen accurate, so I might get it too at some point. I definitely want, so I have the 89 Batarang. Like, I'd like to collect all of those, honestly. I've got the 89 Batarang, and Jason has one of the Batman Beyond ones. They made two of them. They did a red one and a blue one. I think he has the blue one that somebody in the family gave him for Christmas, and I was really jealous because I'm like, I want to get those. And now Jason's got one, so I still have to buy both of those at some point. So I've got them, but they also announced or I think it's out now. They also did a utility belt from I think 66, which is very, very tempting. It's not cheap, but it looks really cool. Paige, Zordon's head would be a good choice too. So before I got these, one idea I had was there's a really great Boom cover that is Zordon versus Lord Zed. And they did an origin arc where we went kind of back and forth, going back in time to the origins of Zordon and Zed, and then present day where they're dealing with each other again. And Zordon, we did this badass arc, 3 or 4 issues, where Zordon is in a mini tube on a robot body and actually goes around and gets to fight with the Rangers for a while. And there's this great cover of him in that body with the smaller tube fighting Lord Zed. And I love that, the pose with that. I thought about getting that tattooed on my arm, and that would be the best way to get Zordon. But I ultimately elected not to do that. But that would have been really cool. And then the last big one. So this is the second to last tattoo that I've gotten, and the last one I already showed you. It's the other Kryptonian tattoo. But this is, of course, an Eastman and Laird Michelangelo. This is a drawing that dates back, I think, to 87, or maybe even a year before. And it's early enough that he's still got a tail. And it's funny because Michelangelo is never my favorite turtle, but I have one of my kids' name is Mikey, and he loves Ninja Turtles. And so I went, if I'm going to get a turtle, it's got to be Michelangelo, but I also want it to be in the grittier Eastman and Laird style. And of course, Elmo does great color work, but because it was that style, I wanted it to be in black and white. So I sent him several pictures to design something from, and he decided he really didn't want to design something for totally fair reasons, like I said earlier. So he selected this one, and I said, yeah, that's cool. I like that well enough, and that's what he ended up doing. I think he did a really great job getting all the shading right and all of that. But again, took no license whatsoever with this. The Bubbles tattoo, he actually did take a little bit of license with. So I told you I love Philip Moy's work, but he actually did that as a sketch at a con, so it wasn't real polished, and all of the folds in the cape are actually Elmo's addition, because he thought it was kind of difficult to tell what was happening with it, and that was absolutely the right call. But this one is exactly as you would have seen it with that drawing. So anyway, those are my tattoos so far. As far as whether I'm going to get any more and what exactly they would be, again, I've been a little bit hesitant because I don't have Elmo anymore, and if that changes, I'll be a lot quicker to go back to it. I'm also running out of real estate for where I would be comfortable getting tattoos, so I'm not really interested in like a chest thing or anything like that. I would maybe do something on my back, but like, I would never get to see it, so I don't, and neither would hardly anybody else. I don't know, I don't have my shirt off a lot. I don't go swimming very much. I don't know when anybody would ever see it. So I'm not sure, besides arms and legs, where else I would get one. Maybe, as I'm getting fitter, I might be a little bit more inclined to do a side tattoo, if a panel, if something really grabbed me. But I've got 3 or 4 more things that I'd really like to do if I continue getting them. I do want to do a Spawn tattoo in honor of Spawn Spawn year, and I have thought about doing a clock that would have the last year that we did Spawn year, because it took two years to make it. So it would be the Spawn clock, but it would say 2014 in it. Thought about doing that. I don't know where I would get it exactly. It might have to be like the back of a leg or the back of an arm if I could fit it. And I've also thought about just getting the basic Spawn logo. A lot of people have that. I would have to try to come up with some kind of cool spin for it. But putting that maybe right here, I've got a little bit of real estate left there. I've heard that's a somewhat painful place to get a tattoo, but I've done enough of this now. I'm sure I can handle it. But anyway, that's the thing I've thought about doing. I really want a Death of Superman tattoo. That's the big one. And yeah, a lot of people have had that, but Death of Superman's too near and dear to me not to get that if I get any more. So I've thought about doing a big one on my back with that. Maybe I would do that on the other side of a leg. I've also thought about getting, because I'm a big Team BG fan. They might be giants. I've thought about getting the cover of Apollo 18 somewhere. And that's big enough. It would have to maybe go like on a, I don't know, a thigh or something. Not a thigh, but like, what am I saying? Top of the leg, not the thigh. What am I talking about? Paige, do you cry in the bathroom alone thinking about Star Trek? No, I cry in public thinking about Star Trek and what's happened in New Trek. No, I'm kidding. No, I don't cry about it, but it's really hard not to complain a lot. Jareth, nice Punisher shirt. Where did you find that? I've had this for quite a while, actually. This is an exercise shirt. It's Under Armour, and I used to wear this a lot working out. I say used to. I lost it for a while. I just found it again recently. So part of the reason I put this on was just I got to work out when we're done here. So I've got my workout clothes on. But also it was cool, and I knew people would like it because I've never worn this on camera. I've never shown it off. This I think was just a Target find, maybe. I know I didn't order it. It wasn't any kind of a specialty thing. I found it at a regular box store. Jareth, a Breaking Bad tattoo would be nice. Yeah, I don't think I would do that. I mean, I love Breaking Bad. It would break my 20-year rule. But I thought about that with a couple of other things. Like, I really like Death Note a lot. And I would maybe get a Death Note tattoo even before a Breaking Bad tattoo. But there's a lot of other things kind of in front of that I would kick around. I don't know. putting all this together and just showing you guys all this in succession, I feel a little crazier, but I also love them, so I'm fine with it. It's cool. Anyway, yeah, I managed to drag this to close to an hour. I'll stick around for just a minute if anybody has any other questions or comments or anything else, I don't know, collection related that you want to talk about. I'm not sure which collection I'll go to next week, and some of these will have to be, because obviously I'm not a real brief person. Some of these will have to be in several parts because of how big some of the collections are. At some point I'm gonna have to start getting into the comics. Like I said, I'm gonna basically show you guys everything I own that is remotely of interest to anybody in Geeky. So I need to get into the comics at some point. I've got 10,000, and I'm not gonna do them all together. So I'm gonna pick like a property or a character and take you through those. But even with that, a lot of those will be in multiple parts. So like if I do Batman, that's probably 2, 3, 4 streams. 2. That's hilarious. It'll be more than that. But you know, at some point I'll take you through the Ninja Turtles comics that I have, and the Power Rangers comics, and the Superman, and you know, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm gonna intersperse that in with a lot of the other collections. So I don't know. I might just kind of take a poll and see what people are most interested in seeing next. Because I've got tons of stuff that I can talk about, and I think it's going to take at least a year to do all of this, especially if I have to skip weeks at all. But I'm going to try to do this as close to weekly as I can. I'm going to want to do vinyl records at some point. I've got, I mentioned this last week. I got Power Ranger stuff. I've got the Star Trek collection, which is going to take weeks and weeks. Because I'll break that up into different things as well. I'll do just kind of general merchandise, but also I've got I want to say, I mean, it's hard to know, but I've got to have one of the most complete Star Trek reference libraries there is, and I'm still missing stuff, but it's massive now. And I did a video on that a lot of years ago with my wife, and it's grown 3 times probably since that. I've got the Tick stuff, which I did a video on once, but I've got a little bit more since then, and so I'm gonna revisit everything. AMC video game collection, yeah, absolutely. And that'll take several videos too, because I'm not gonna brush by stuff. I'm gonna spend time. If I don't have anything to say, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and make up stuff. But I'm gonna hit every game. I'm gonna show you guys everything I've got. So I hope this will be fun for folks. I'm really looking forward to it. It's gonna be a good trip down memory lane. And I think, like I said last week, I'm gonna find stuff that I don't even remember that I've got. So I'm not going to plan much ahead of time for these things, because it'll be kind of like, treasure hunting. You know what? I might do the childhood toy collection next time, because I mentioned this last week and I forgot about it. I have a trunk of all of my old action figures from when I was a kid that Jason has really been wanting to see, because he hasn't seen them since he was little and he probably doesn't remember much of what's in there. And then I can show off all of the Turtles figures that I still have, that I just rebought the reissues for, that I showed you guys like perfectly in pack. And I've opened those since then, because I'm going to do a display with them. But I showed you guys last time the inbox, perfect shape versions, and then you'll see like them scuffed up, and some of them are missing limbs and all of that. So that'll be a lot of fun. AMC sounds fun. Appreciate that. Noel Anderson in action figure collection, maybe. Yeah, I think that's probably what I'll do next time, and I'm going to try, if I can. I've been keeping Jason up too late lately. He's trying to get back on a better sleep schedule, so I don't know how often he'll be here for these. I'm having to do them pretty late at night, but if I can get Jason on that next time, I'd love to take him through those. So some of these he's going to want to try to be there for if he's able to. Anyway, we're at an hour. I'm going to get going. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. I'll see you with more streams here this week. I was Captain Logan, and I hope you guys have a wonderful night and a great week. And I hope to see you again soon on another stream. Bye, everybody.